And I was a designer. I worked in architecture, master planning, furniture design and lighting design. So when I first seen the scheme, I did see your address in Parliament where you described it as monstrous, and indeed that's exactly what it is. And the way I look at it is, this scheme is less to do with regeneration, it's more to do with revenue generation. This is something which will line the pockets of Ballymore, TfL, and indeed even Barnet Council to a certain extent will get multiple council tax returns from it. But the scheme itself is just totally out of order. And I mean, coming here tonight and walking through this development, this is the kind of yardstick I think they should be using, horizontal development as opposed to vertical development. And I think that Ballymore in particular have shown complete arrogance and disregard to the community of Edgware in trying to bulldoze this scheme through. But I think the most egregious aspect of it is having read that Barnet Council want to enshrine in law the Barnet Plan. Now, if they do that, that's like a green light to approve this scheme, whereas it's almost as if it's politicising the planning system. I mean, the planning system is supposed to be neutral, it's supposed to be fair, and if this happens with this scheme, any other suburban town is likely to be inflicted with the same kind of development. That's all I want to say.
I'd be delighted to. Excuse me, can you summarise what you said? No, I really share your concerns on this. It is a monstrous scheme, and both Bob and I have had the opportunity to make that point in Parliament. And I also think you're quite right. There are good alternatives, as I think we've all said. We acknowledge that there are regeneration opportunities around Edgware Town Centre. You know, there are improvements that can be made, but the Stonegrove redevelopment regeneration project shows that you can do that in a way which is actually relatively dense. You know, there's some quite tall buildings out there, but not the extremes that are proposed by the Mayor of London and Ballymore, which, well, as I picked up from the the Save Our Edgware website, would give the town centre a denser population than Hong Kong or Manhattan, which frankly is just balmy.
Thank you. Just one other point to add to that. I think we need, speaking to local residents, we need homes in the area and not flats. And another issue with this development is that it won't benefit the local community. The developers have already started to advertise it internationally and to buy to let for investment, so it doesn't actually benefit the local community, you know, young people in Edgware who want homes at all. And like you said, you know, the Stonegrove, the development on this side, which is horizontal, is much more in keeping with the area, but also what's much more needed. So, you know, a house for young families. So that's another point that I'd like to say.
I'm trying to pick up something. I've got one. Two things I'd like to ask. Firstly, I may not get the numbers exactly right. Sorry. Two things I'd like to ask. I may not get the numbers exactly right. The first thing is, I had understood that Barnet Council is committed to building approximately 5,000 new housing units in the borough. So does anyone know why they feel that they have to build 4,000 of them on our tiny little plot of land? Why is this commitment to build all these extra housing or places to live? Why isn't it spread across the borough a lot more? Has anyone got a clue as to why they made this decision? So that's my first thing.
I think the numbers in the Barnet local plan are for 36,000 new homes, and that would have a truly daunting impact on Barnet. My worry is that really involves complete urbanisation of the borough. Now, as to why there is this huge concentration of those new homes proposed for Edgware Town Centre, I have to say I find that quite mysterious. It isn't paralleled with other town centres. I mean, there are, I'm afraid, a huge number of deeply controversial proposals in the Barnet Plan, the draft Barnet Plan, but I don't think any of them are this bad. So sadly, I can't answer the question as to why Barnet Council and TfL have decided to go for this concentration in this particular place, but perhaps my colleagues know more than I do.
Well, I think there's several things here. One is that Barnet has been very successful in the development of housing over the years and providing new homes, probably better than most boroughs. One of the problems I think that has happened as a result is that more housing targets have been layered on Barnet as a result of being able to do that. I don't think actually Barnet should be punished for actually achieving more homes. It should be rewarded, and I think this is part and parcel of the problem. The other issue could well be, and you've got to get into the minds of the council leadership here, if they can concentrate this number of homes in one area, then they don't have to build them somewhere else. So they don't mind punishing the people of Edgware, so they don't have to punish other people elsewhere in Barnet. That might be on their minds. I think the other fact is that what we're also looking at is not just the concentration of the development, but the type of development that there will be. As Ameet was quite rightly saying, what is needed is family homes. And for example, there's at least one of these blocks, if not more, which will be student accommodation. Now, funny enough, there isn't a university or college around here for them to be accommodated. But why would they do that? Because they can provide a series of rooms, a shared bathroom and a shared kitchen. So they have a lower standard of accommodation, which of course would be totally unsuitable for families or couples or other stable relationships. But it's a cheaper form of providing more housing units straight away. The other aspect I think that maybe we could talk about is the plans which we've talked about before, about the bus station and the concept of having 100 or more electric buses underground underneath blocks of flats. Well, I think they would make Grenfell look like a picnic compared to what could happen as a result. We've obviously, I think there's been a lot of lobbying over that particular issue. There's nowhere in the world where this has been tried. What we do know, one of the things I've done in Parliament is to chair the all-party group on fire and safety. And we have seen the videos from the London Fire Brigade that there are about the fires that are caused by electric bikes, let alone electric buses. And if you had 100 of these in a situ and one of them goes up in flames, it doesn't bear thinking about what the consequence could be. Now, of course, that has a direct impact on the land that is available then for development. Because unless they take those buses underground, they've got to find somewhere for those buses to be as part and parcel of the TfL site. So that is another aspect that's got to be considered in this whole process. And frankly, I think the problem is that if we are looking at what the London plan says, the overall London plan, we should be looking at no more than 6 stories on this site. And for those of you that don't know, I'm not someone that opposes development per se. I think there's a case for reasonable development. When I was leader of Barnet Council some while ago, we ripped down the Stonebridge estate and built more housing on the Stonebridge estate without the tower blocks. When we have rebuilt the Chalk Hill estate, we rebuilt the Chalk Hill estate, a more dense operation with houses rather than flats. So the reality is you can do this with proper planning. I think the point that has been made over here is there needs to be a proper master plan for this site that has proper density and proper consideration for the residents in the area surrounding the site, rather than just concentrating on urbanisation for urbanisation's sake and cramming people into a very small space as Ameet says, without the amenities, without the extra facilities that are required, because they claim, I think they're claiming, well, the school is not full, so therefore they can take children. They'll claim that the hospitals are doing okay, so they don't need any medical facilities. They'll claim that probably the dentists are okay, so they'll claim everything. They'll claim everything, and they won't want to provide any of those amenities on site because the developers are very greedy and can spot an opportunity to make a huge amount of money out of this site. And as Ameet says, no local people will benefit. It'll all be done, sold in Singapore, Hong Kong, around the world, China, and people will buy these places, then rent them out at extortionate rates that local people won't be able to afford. Then the people that do go into them will have to claim housing benefit, and our Chancellor Treasury will have to pay the cost to subsidise the foreign ownership. Now, if you think that's a good idea, well, I don't think you will think it's a good idea, and nor do I. And I think that, very sadly, is the reality of this proposed development.
Thank you, Bob. I don't think there's much to add from that, but I would highlight that Sadiq Khan also has a role to play in this in terms of, as Mayor of London, identifying sites. And we've seen this in Stanmore and Cannons Park as well. And sadly, TfL, the officers there, they know nothing about the nature of local communities such as Edgware, and it's literally just pinpointing something on a map. You know, that looks good, let's go there. But it's definitely a concern that I know we've raised with local councillors here as well in Barnet.
I had another point, if I may. Yeah, something a bit different. Yes, another concern of mine about this potential development is does the mental health of the potential residents been taken into consideration at all? Did we learn nothing from the 60s and 70s, building tower blocks and putting communities in them, and then the isolation of people that resulted from that? And eventually it was learned, and those tower blocks were torn down and people housed in much more community-style housing developments. The people on the top floors of those apartment blocks are going to be quite isolated, and the people, what concerns me, the people in the lower floors will be lacking a certain amount of daylight into their apartments because they'll be surrounded by other tall buildings, and things like daylight and community are so important for the mental health of any community, and I think this sounds like an absolute disaster in that respect.
Say anything about the on our Save Our Edgware website, there is a point about the local planning, which is what makes, anyway, Anuta will say something.
Not Anita's forte.
Hello. One of the things that seems to have condemned Edgware in Sadiq Khan's eyes is that it has been identified as Barnet's only major town centre, even though it's the only major town centre in Barnet. We're not convinced that it qualifies as a major town centre, because when we did a poll, I think about 3 people knew. Anybody in the audience, did you know that it was the only major town centre of Barnet? One person, and he's a councillor. So it was a very well-held secret. And Edgware's, it's a surprise that it is so major, and it doesn't seem to actually fit any of the criteria. And I'm not convinced either that they've assessed the change in Edgware since 2004 when they deemed it that. But the main modifications in relation to Edgware are because of that. So, create something, and then, it's a strange straw argument that, you know, I spy with my little eye Edgware, which also happens to be on a borough line with 3 constituencies, but also Barnet has chosen to exclude the Harrow element in discussions for this major town, but included all the data to attempt to make it qualify as a major town. And I'm not sure how that's logical or acceptable.
Following on from Anita's comments there, in the London plan, the Mayor has stated that all developing boroughs should ignore the suburban building and design, but consider them as a major town designs, which is what they're following. We are not a major town. Earlier part of saying was that finance, somebody's going to make some money there, but surprisingly, TfL Properties are selling their land. TfL Transport are not saying a thing. Are we in Edgware being used as a guinea pig for this 80 underground car park? Because it's the only one in the world, and are we the guinea pigs to see if it's going to work before transport will actually get involved? I don't want to be a guinea pig.
Can I just make a general point about the suburbs in response to the very important points raised in your second question? You know, that the suburbs have been such a success for this nation. They're a precious resource. They're extolled in our culture and our poetry. Anyone who's seen the Metroland documentary knows that they're just brilliant places to live. Ever since they were created in the 1920s and the 1930s. And I completely agree, we are in danger of repeating the mistakes of the 60s and 70s. And you only have to look to countries overseas to understand the mistakes that can be made when you look at the Parisian banlieue that erupt into rioting on a regular basis in those bleak tower blocks throughout the Parisian suburbs. You know, we ruin our suburbs at our peril, and there is a real danger of building the slums of the future, and that's one of the many reasons why I'm adamantly opposed, not just to these tower blocks, but the others I've been fighting in the constituency I've previously represented, including the Mayor's determined attempt to build over Cockfosters Station car park, which so far we have managed to block. And I think that, you know, working together, if we 3 are re-elected, then you will have a strong voice on your side in Parliament trying to stop the Mayor of London from doing this.
Hello, good evening, can you hear me? We thank you, 3 lovely people on this table, Bob, Theresa and Ameet. You've supported us all the way through, and it's been fantastic. Now, I'm just looking at this building, and I'm looking at this area, and there's nothing more than 8 stories high. Is it 10 stories, the highest building? But most aren't. Okay, the tallest is 10. I'll go with the tallest being 10 in the Broadwalk, cascading down to 5. And I think this is a wonderful development from what it was to what it is, and what it could be in the Broadwalk and what it is at the moment. I think there's a lot to be done there. I'm going to ask you, what can we do with a Barnet Council to convince them not to go down this road, Ballymore not to go down this road, and what can we do in Parliament to convince the MPs there to support a scheme that is good for the residents? Because the residents don't want this, and they've said so. We've got a petition of 5,000, you've got 3,500, and so on and so forth. They don't want it. But Ballymore says everybody wants it. I mean, and I think this whole thing is a nonsense, complete nonsense, and we've all agreed. But you 3 wise people here, what can we do to convince Ballymore Barnet, TfL and the MPs to overturn this ridiculous scheme.
Thank you, Edwin, for that question. I'd just like to say that this election is a very important election because locally, I believe that this election will be a referendum on the Broadwalk because my colleagues and I are the only voice against this development. And our local Labour counterparts in all three constituencies either in for or have said nothing throughout this debate. And with the Labour Council, who will play a key role in this, and with Labour Mayor of London, a Labour MP in our local area will just rubber stamp this development. And this is why it's so important to have a Conservative MP in each of the constituencies that Edgware encompasses, so that we can be a strong voice locally and in Parliament. And that's Edwin, to your question, what can we show to Ballymore? This is what we can show in this election. That we are all for protecting and enhancing Edgware, and this is why we're here, and to have that strong voice. That's the message that we need to show to Ballymore from this election.
Could I just answer, one of the key issues here is Ballymore are yet to submit their planning application. Now, I just have a shrewd suspicion they are waiting. They waited for the result of the Mayor of London election because they knew that if Sadiq Khan was elected, he would smile on this planning application, however dense it was going to be. They probably waited till after the general election to see what happens. And frankly, I think it's up to you guys. Frankly, if you wake up on July the 5th with MPs from the Labour Party, Sadiq Khan and a Labour government, then this development will proceed rapidly and it'll be built over your heads, because there'll be no one opposing it other than probably the local councillors, and with respect that they are in opposition in Barnet Council. So your choice is very simple in this election. If we three are not elected, then you're going to face an uphill battle by yourselves. And frankly, the people that are standing, I don't know the candidate standing against Ameet and Theresa here, but I know the candidate that's standing against me. He's a two-term councillor who has never spoken. He was elected for 8 years in Harrow Council, never spoke once in the council chamber. I've debated him a few times recently, in fact last night. He's like a wet blanket. And if he is elected to replace me, then frankly he'll just do what he's told to do by the Labour leadership. And therefore, frankly, for all local people, certainly on my side of the border here, if he is your MP, good luck, because he will do nothing for you, because he is not capable of actually standing up against the Labour Party's leadership. He's got no experience, no capability, and indeed has never done anything for anyone, and frankly on the debates we've had has demonstrated no leadership whatsoever. And when he was asked for his comments about this proposal, the best thing he could come up with was to have a meeting with Ballymore Estates to see what this was all about. Now frankly, this has been going on for so long as a campaign, as all of you know. If you're a parliamentary candidate on an issue so important to this area, you should get briefed about it and know what you're talking about and know whether you're for it. If you're for it, come out and say it. Or against it. If you're against it, come out and say it. But you've got to take action, because otherwise you're not fit to represent people. What I will say to anyone here from Harrow East is, it's up to you how you vote, but I hope you're going to support me. Tell your friends, your family to support me, because I'll be standing up against this development, and I know my colleagues here will as well, because that's what we've got to do.
And just at the risk of repeating, my Labour opponent didn't even answer the questions sent to him by Save Our Edgware. So not only is he not here, he apparently has no view on this development. And in fact, at every hustings debate I've had with him, he's opened his remarks enthusiastic about Labour's planning reforms, which are designed to push this kind of development through without local consent.